and the game plan forward from there. Please, can you welcome the panelists to the stage? Andy Holman, the CEO of Ethos, Duncan Muir, Cafe Director of Batil International, Heidi Al-Hakim, the partner and CEO of International Trading Franchises, and Akhilesh Bahal, the founder and CEO of Malt and Salt Hospitality, and your moderator, Tapan Vaidya, the CEO of PJP Investment Group. Ladies and gentlemen, your panel and moderator.
Thank you. Thanks. Hey, Duncan. Andy. Thank you. What is customer experience? CX is a much brandished about term by everyone in our industry. Everyone talks about it. As mundane as it may sound, this indicator still remains right at the top to determine the degree of success attained by any organization. So I thought I'll do some research and check what kind of definitions are going around in different organizations. So first, customer experience is everything related to a business that affects a customer's perception and feelings about it. Customer experience is the sum of all interactions that a customer has with an organization over the life of the relationship with that company or with that brand. Second, customer experience is your customer's holistic perception of their experience with your business or brand. CX is a result of every interaction a customer has with your business, from navigating the website to talking to customer service and receiving the product service they bought from you. Everything you do impacts your customer's perception and their decision to keep coming back or not. So a great customer experience is your key to success. And lastly, a third definition, customer experience encompasses every aspect of a company's offering. The quality of customer care, of course, but also advertising, packaging, product and service features, ease of use and reliability. So did you know a totally satisfied customer contributes 2.6 times as much revenue as a somewhat satisfied customer and 14 times as much revenue as a somewhat dissatisfied customer? Well, let's hear from our august panel. I see millions and millions of dirhams of turnover here. I see at least 100 years of experience on the stage. Let's hear from them. How do you define customer experience? Let's start with Andy, then we'll go to Akhilesh, then Duncan, and finally Hadi. How do you define customer experience?
I heard a comment the other day, which I thought captured the essence of hospitality really well, which is that it's ultimately a mixture of art and science, of organized anticipation. So great hospitality happens when everybody involved in the venture tries to figure out in advance what should be happening to make any guest when they arrive through their visit and as they leave as organized as possible. And great hospitality happens when the team are thinking about that customer's experience. And I think from there it follows they should have themselves a really close understanding as to what that great experience is, right? And I know that there are many sort of temptations in our industry to bring people on board who may not have had any kind of formal training and expect them to be able to represent what you want without being properly briefed and trained. So I guess, at the end of the day, there are a couple of really important points. One, a guest is going to feel that they've had a great experience if from every element of their journey, if they're phoning up to book a table or if they're going online to order a delivery, if somebody has taken the time to do that themselves and anticipate what kind of experience is provided, and then from the time they arrive to the time they leave, everybody in the venture, whether they're the doorman, whether they're the person looking after the table, whether they're the chef, whoever, has a really a kind of a genuine belief and understanding as to what that company's service expectations are, and has been given time and training to be able to have the skills to do that. And if they haven't been given the time or the training, then they should be put to a place where they can't at least damage the customer's perception and not be put in front of the customer until they've had that. But in essence, that's what it is, I think. It's organized anticipation.
Sure. Akhilesh?
I think we're all customers, somewhere down the line, not necessarily restaurants or F&B. We're humans, right? My feeling on customer experience is not really just a customer or providing, trainings to provide experience. It's more common sense. And the way I undergo my trainings with the teams have always been one basic philosophy, which is humanizing the entire effort. And I give a small example all the time saying, somebody comes home and rings the bell and I open the door. A guest walks in. When a guest walks in, I'm greeting the guest. I'm serving them tea, coffee, water. I'm treating them well. I'm talking to them well. That's humanizing the entire effort. But that takes me back 25 years to my trainings in the hotels, and that's how we were trained to, greet and serve and delight, and take orders in the absence of iPads, and you had to memorize. You were not even allowed notepads. Cut to now, we're heavy on technology. There are so many touch points. The customers really got the paddle. We don't. We, more often than not, are more on the reactivity end or the receiving end, and we react to orders, we prepare orders, we serve orders, not knowing sometimes who the customer is, where the customer is. So I think we've just got to humanize the effort and realize all the touch points, bases our business model. It could be a dark kitchen, a cloud kitchen, a fine dine restaurant, just a pure cafeteria serving shawarmas. We'll identify the touch points, get sensible people with the right attitude, with basic training to be customer interfacing, and then just work your best on the delight element. And that's customer experience for me.
I love that, especially the word delight customers. That's what we all want to do.
We all want to be delighted as customers, as humans. I go home, I want my son to come and hug me, and that's delight for me. So if that be the case on the personal front, why shouldn't it be on the work front?
Oh, great. Duncan, take it away.
Yeah, I think I would like to kind of maybe extend that a little bit further to the importance of engagement. And I think the guest experience obviously is about good food, the environment you sit in, and that's very easy to replicate or copy, but the engagement you have with your brand and the consumer through your team is really the defining difference between you and your competition and the rest of the market. So we put a lot of effort on developing a team that tries to, as much as possible, engage, listen, and observe what the guest likes and wants, and obviously deliver and exceed their expectations. And I think historically, 20 years ago, it was all about transactions, role plays, talk lines, upselling, and it was very, very scripted, robotic, and the consumer doesn't want that anymore. The teams don't want that. They want to be themselves. They want to be genuine. And I think if they are genuine, they can engage with the guest. They can build a rapport. And I think that is probably the most defining difference of the guest experience. Obviously, they have to have good food. They have to sit in a comfortable environment. But I think that the missing piece, if you have a bad experience, normally is that level of engagement, that you feel connected to the team. They've done everything they can to make you happy. They've gone that extra mile if needed. They've anticipated your unique preferences. And I think building that in your team is very difficult because you can't script it, you can't SOP it, you have to kind of create a culture within the team to be hospitable and personable, and as we said earlier, that leads to the delight, which will make them come back again. Stickiness, you know, what makes them come back, and that's your engagement with. So I think for us, I think as a company, I think as an industry, the more we engage with the consumer and build that rapport, the better it is in terms of them coming back and spending 2.5 times more than anyone else does.
Perfect. Hadi?
Yes, I think from our point of view, we completely agree. I completely agree with everybody says. The thing we need to understand is that engaging a customer in a restaurant isn't just about customer service. The customer experience is about a whole load of channels where we need to portray or convey a consistent message. That message is reliable, efficient service, and that we need to do through not just customer service. It could be through our social media, through our website, through online ordering, through our phone calls, and so on. So what we do from our end, and I'm sure everybody else does, is to make sure that we consistently engage with that customer, consistently understand from their point of view, get their feedback throughout the different channels. So customer experience isn't just customer service, it's more than that. It's the perception that they have about your brand from the signage that they look when they walk down the street, and it's the interaction they have throughout the different channels, not just customer service. Just wanted to highlight that.
No, great. I think all of you have given great definitions. In fact, you've provided great content, if you ask me, on this topic. Let's move on to the next one. And unlike some of our previous sessions today, with the wealth of experience that we have on the panel, we are going to ask every question to every panelist. This one is, what does customer experience mean to your business, and what features or elements have you built to address this aspect in your business? And/or, what do your teams do to address this aspect? We will take answers in this order: Duncan, then Hadi, then Andy, and finally Akhilesh. Duncan?
Yeah, so one of our evolutions of the Café Batil brand is around the healthy proposition, which we've developed a menu content and drinks content around healthiness. But with that comes a unique requirement from the consumer that they would like transparency. There's a lot more questions asked about what is in the food, how is it prepared, where does it come from. So for us, we've had to really adapt the experience to be a kind of a knowledge-based transfer where when consumers come in because they want to subscribe to a healthy dining experience in a very a nice environment, they want the service to be very knowledgeable, that they can answer the questions. We have a huge amount of customization. There's not many tickets printing in the kitchen that don't have a comment on it. They want add this, take this, and we have to accommodate that. We have to be flexible, but also we have to obviously answer any questions that come in, and that's evolved a lot over the last few years. And I think probably COVID's probably even exaggerated that evolution because people now are a bit more health conscious. Yeah. So for us, we've put a product knowledge and the understanding and even empathy is really, really important in our service model, which we think is a critical part of the guest experience.
Great. Hadi?
Yes, from our point of view, I think there are several things we focus on as an entity to make sure that we do have exceptional service or experience. I mean, one of the things, as I've seen today in the presentation, everybody's talking about collecting data, which we all do, I'm sure, but the difference is that what we need to do is once you collect it, you need to analyze it, you need to segment it, you need to understand it, and based on that, reflect it back onto the action plans that you do. For example, let's say certain items are not being sold in your restaurant, you understand from your PMix, you start having an action plan to improve your menu. 1, 2, in terms of understanding your consumer. With all the data we have, we know the habits, we know when they're going to come again, so on and so forth, so we understand the consumer better. So in terms of data has become very influential in terms of customer experience. Another thing we look at is also, again, during the presentations today, we saw that empowering employees is very important. employees are ambassadors to your brand. If your employee is disgruntled, is unhappy, his service is going to be unhappy, and thus the customer experience wouldn't be up to scratch. Therefore, empowering the employees, making sure your employees have the right tools to take the right actions on the floor, making sure that customers are happy is quite important. The third thing is the customer itself, making sure that we listen to the customer. One thing that we do always before we introduce any new products into any of our restaurants, we do focus groups. These focus groups we invite, for example, all the loyal customers that we do have, and they come on board. We take their opinion, we make them feel part of the family, and that builds a lot of loyalty to the brand. So that's one thing that we do is we nurture these customers, we take care of them. Whatever feedback that we do get, we make sure we answer it, whether good or bad, we make sure we answer it. We have a customer CRM program whereby I personally look at all the reviews that we receive and we reply to them always, and that's something we regularly do. So that's quite important for us. So it's data, it's knowing the customer, it's empowering the employees. Today, customer experience is building relationships with customers, creating, learning about their behaviors in order to create loyal customers, loyalty to the brand, and that's what we need. Having repeat customers is extremely important. It's cheaper to maintain a customer rather than to acquire a new one. So this brand loyalty is important. Another thing to highlight is that we as restaurateurs, we all serve similar product. We have similar service. Shop fit is somewhat similar, yes or no, we can argue that. But again, the competition, the market is saturated. So, and the consumer is very fickle. One day he'll be at your restaurant, the other day we might make a small mistake, he'll go to the other, so we'll lose him. So nurturing the customer, understanding the customer is very important to make sure we maintain him.
Yes, Andy?
Look, I think where we sit is the customer delight is the end process, the end of a long process of many, many micro elements preceding it. So if there's a role that the team play, it's in trying to, get into the detail of everything from whether it's food production, is it good food? I mean, as we develop menu items, we have a fairly robust internal process before it gets anywhere near a customer. We don't do a huge amount of organized quantitative research. We're pretty technically minded people. We like food. We eat out enough. If it's good enough for us and we really like it, then we'll put it out in front of customers. But that's a kind of a summation of probably a 3-month process. When we launch restaurants, we have a lot of learning from previous launches. Every single time we design a kitchen, we spend effort thinking about, is the organization of the equipment in the right way? What have we learned in the past 6 months since we built another place that we can improve on? So everything is subject to question and revision and talking to teams, what's happening in the real life, so that those things are kind of debated, discussed, managed at the support center, so that at the point the process repeats, that we can improve the chance that the customer's going to get an experience that's going to make them smile. So I think that's the important thing. It's not, if something's gone wrong with the customer experience, it didn't happen then. It happened some way down the chain, and that's what we have to figure out, right? And if the organization is able and willing to accept there was some responsibility a week, a month, 3 months ago, then you have a chance of kind of continually improving.
Yeah, very true. Akhilesh?
I think for me it begins with creating efficiencies within the system down the chain. So like, just Duncan said about if there's something gone wrong now, it's not now, it's from before. It's a systemic problem. For me, I like to keep things simple. The training has to work backwards from the customer all the way down the line. For me, my customer is not the end customer who pays the bills. For me, my customer are my teams. So if I can train them well and take care of them well, I'm hoping rather that they would take care of the customers in a nice manner, serve the customers well. The person serving the customer is not necessarily the person who's cooking the meal. So it's got to go down into the kitchen, but down to dishwash, down to cleaning, down to purchase, procurement. It's got to be a cultural issue. The training for for giving customer delight or a heightened experience of efficiency of customer experience has to go down as a culture point across the organization. And many a times you've just got to follow a top-down process. You've got to train hard, you've got to use a carrot and stick approach if required, but at the end of the day, keeping things simple. Keeping customer in mind. For me, my customer is my team. And I train them to keep their customer, and every link in the chain is somebody's customer till you reach the eventual customer. So we work the SOPs in that manner, and I've tasted failure and success both through the process, but happy to repeat the process every second day.
No, absolutely true. I think, keeping your team happy so that they'll keep your customers happy. Wonderful. In fact, I have something to share with the audience. So, there is this airline company, well known for maintaining, just like you said, maintaining an excellent work culture to make their employees happy and comfortable. They have created this healthy work environment that consisted of teamwork, work values, and motivation with the team. I want you to name this airline. Before you do that, I'll give you one example of customer service from this airline, and there are many. I've heard dozens of examples, but one is that of when a man traveling to see his grandson for the last time got delayed due to heavy traffic and reached the airport 12 minutes after scheduled departure. The pilot of the plane waited for the man prior to taking off. Now just imagine that grandfather's expression when he saw that the plane is still waiting for him. Imagine the captain must have, usually when we are sitting in a plane, the captain says, well, the baggage is still being loaded, sorry for the delay, etc. But here, the captain would have probably announced that we have this grandfather who is going to meet his grandson for the last time. And so imagine the cheers of the passengers when the grandfather finally entered the plane. Which is this airline? Yes? Sorry? No, that is not the right answer. Yes, Damien? No, Singapore is also not the right answer. No, Cathay is still not, Mr. Madani. Southwest is the right answer. Mr. Madani has just won 1 million air miles on Southwest. Except that Southwest doesn't fly to Dubai, but it is a wonderful airline to fly. All right, so we have a next question. How have a typical customer's experience expectations evolved over time? We'll start with Hadi, then Duncan, Akhilesh, and finally Andy.
Well, to be honest, obviously it's evolved in the last 2 years, has been drastic, but the principles of customer service remain the same, whether now or before. Everybody's looking for reliable, friendly, efficient service. Now, with the introduction of technology, especially in the last 2 years, what happened is that, for example, today the customer wants immediate responses. They send you a text or, a message, and on social media they want an immediate response. Before we didn't have that. So today the customer is demanding efficiency a lot faster than it used to be. If they have a complaint, they expect resolution, immediate resolution. So that's one thing where the customer has evolved. Also, the customer now is craving for attention. With all the big data or the collection of data that we have a lot of information on the habits of customers. Therefore, they expect you to personalize certain aspects of their customer journey by knowing their name, by knowing what they regularly order, by speeding up certain processes within the customer journey. So that's another area. Again, go back to efficiency and speed. Another thing they want is some people, come in, they want to eat quickly, move out. So you have the QR codes whereby, they can order directly through their QR codes, check the menu, and even pay the bill through the QR code. That never existed before. So the speed, the personalization within of customers has really changed over time.
Duncan?
Yeah, I think obviously I was also going to say about personalization and customization, which is really king. But also I think the guest experience has become a bit bigger than just the 45 minutes or an hour you're in the restaurant. I think the experience is also about what you read about the brand before you go in. You may want to look at the menu, you want to read reviews, you then have the experience afterwards, you may give some feedback yourself. So I think the guest experience is much bigger now than just the physical time you're in the restaurant. Your engagement with that brand is before and after as well. And I think linked to that, the way we measure their experience has changed over time as well. Before we had the old-fashioned paper comment cards, we used to have mystery diners, and obviously a lot of companies still do mystery diners, but the power of online reviews and ratings has changed how us as operators kind of measure our experience as well. And it gives the consumers, every consumer, the ability to write either anonymously or with a name of what they think of the experience they've had. So that's evolved massively. I think that's changed how we look at our operations as well, because before, if there was a negative review written down on a piece of paper comment card, it never reached the management. I'm sure it was binned at the first opportunity. Now there is no hiding, and everything is transparent to us as an operator and as a business, but also to other consumers and other guests. So I think the measurement has changed massively, and I think that's had a big impact on the business for the better, for the good.
No, true.
Yeah.
Akhilesh? Oh, we have.
I think expectations of customers, they've just broken the roof ceiling and, exploded. Back in the day, they didn't like a drink at the bar, they would come and shout at me, and, I would change the drink, and it would be within, 50 people, 100 people around the bar, and that was the social circle. But like you said, they've got the power now, and they're journalists and critics and writers and content providers and, bashers at the same time. And, sometimes not me, but a lot of people would pay to get reviews. But I think at the end of the day, from a soul perspective, everybody just wants to be treated well. And, going back to basics, addressed by name, treated well, good food, great value for money, forget the discounting and forget the everything else, and food delivery, if be the case now, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, till pre-pandemic 2019, it used to be 1 hour, and now suddenly if you're 31 minutes, the order automatically stands cancelled. So I think expectations have just skyrocketed, and that's putting it very mildly. And we've just got to, like you said, in operations, we've got to work backwards and try and understand every point of where we can energize and create efficiencies and reach the customer in the best possible manner. And there's no golden rule, because in the pyramid of F&B, right from the bottom to the top, the genres of F&B service or food production, there are so many layers now. 20 years ago, there were 2 layers. Now there are minimum, I don't know, I've lost count, but name 20. So the dynamic would be different, the expectation would be different, but everybody's just got to stay sensible and true to their business model and work hard at everything.
Andy?
Look, I think those are the 2 big tectonic shifts. So customers have got power. Everything that's been said, reflects that. But I think what's actually the biggest change is that power's come from the level of education and discernment around customers has changed. I mean, I'm a UK national. 30, 40 years ago, UK culinary scene was not as developed as it is now. And more to the point, the level of customers, I mean, it wasn't just, my parents that used to go out and eat. I mean, you were lucky as a family if you maybe had one meal a week. Now I look at my kids and their clique, and they're eating 5, 6, 7 times a week in different places. They may eat a burger 6 times on the trot, but they're very discerning. They understand. And what happens every time they have something really good, it resets the base for which their expectations are then set for the next time. And they can be very accommodating, but they're not particularly forgiving. So I think the reality is we've got an audience that are able to spend more, prepared to spend more. I mean, there's a lot of research that says millennials is one of the target audience we chase after. They're absolutely prepared to forego a lot of the things that we would probably have considered important in our time, big nights out. They don't mind. They're just more than happy to have, one special event with their friends, and they will go deep into that experience, and they'll, kind of be an ambassador for it if it's worked for them, and they'll be absolutely critical if it hasn't. So I think what's really changed within that is the brand's responsibility to understand how they feel, right? Have that edge kind of conversation with them in whatever manner, whether it's social, online, or whether it's direct. If you don't do that at your peril, you'll kind of suffer. But if you invest time and effort in trying to listen to what they want to say, you can reap some great benefits.
No, true. So, I mean, it's fascinating how customers' expectations have evolved over time, and goes back to the morning session Mr. Madani said about the Industrial Revolution 1, 2, 3, and the tech revolution. And I mean, the expectations have been just rising and rising, and they haven't reached any stop. So, please be on the lookout. The evolution will continue, and we as operators will have to be ready with solutions, evolving solutions. I have another question for the audience. This branded hotel chain is known for its award-winning customer service. One of the keys to its success is empowering employees to surprise, delight, another use of delight, to surprise, delight, and solve customer problems. One customer forgot their laptop charger in the hotel room. Before the customer had time to call the hotel, the charger was couriered to the customer. Someone already gave the answer, right answer. Ritz-Carlton it is. But back in the day, Ritz-Carlton, I think every employee was empowered, I think 2,000 US budget to delight customers. Of course, since then, a lot has changed. Marriott acquired Ritz-Carlton, and then Marriott merged with Starwood. And now Ritz-Carlton is part of Bonvoy. I don't know what the story is today, but I'm sure they still continue to delight their customers. Ravi, we can't hear you. If someone can reach you a microphone. Thank you. Thanks. I mean, but there are some legendary examples from Ritz-Carlton. Next, what part do aggregators, our favorite folks, what part do aggregators play in the CX game? We'll hear from Akhilesh, then Andy, Hardy, and finally Duncan. Take it away.
Can I flip the question? Do they play a part? We should have had them here, call them out. Look, I think much has been said about them. We all love them, hate them, we yet work with them. I think for me, they're more, initially, they're more a customer acquisition process. But my belief has always been that if it's delivery, I want to try and reach my customer myself. So I'll break this up. A few years ago, if you remember Zomato Talabat, not Deliveroo, not Uber, but Zomato Talabat used to be only generating orders, and you had to do the last mile yourself. And then came a time when they started pressing everybody in the industry saying, no, we do the last mile as well, and then came to a point where it was a take it or leave it sort of a scenario, percentages varying, and we had difficult conversations. I think also they played hardball, softball with different players depending on size, depending on brand, depending on volume and the revenue that they generated. But I always stuck to the point that you generate the orders for me, but I deliver the orders myself. If the food is being prepared in my kitchen under my brand, under my SOPs and process, being packed in my packaging under my brand, why shouldn't it be delivered by my people, my logistics, to my customer in the way I want it to be delivered to my customer? Yes, I can't feed my customer, but the least I can do is be present in my brand uniform with the SOP and the etiquette that needs to be delivered to my customer at his door. And that was the biggest fight, which is why I asked, can I flip the question, that do they really do it? Because as a customer, my wife does order, I order, we get food home, and very seldom do we see the brand person standing outside of the door. We see one of the aggregator brands non-compliant in uniform, non-compliant in personality, non-compliant in training. Touchless happened, contactless happened. They would leave the bag and go away, which to me was the best thing that could have happened, because at least I see something there which I don't have to get upset about, and I take my food. But I think they're serving their own purpose. For them, the customer needs to be us as the operators. And that customer service doesn't come through. Not necessarily for everyone, big or small. The bigger you are as a brand, number of outlets, the more business you give to them, you get treated differently, and their internal models have changed. But I'm not here, to say that they're bad. They're a necessity. We've all worked with them. We've all learned how to work with them. We've found our middle paths, if you may say. But I think if I have a customer, I want to serve him myself, one way or another.
Great. Andy?
I think it depends is the answer. I mean, the journey when they started was good and served a purpose and met a need and was excellent. Everybody benefited. They're going through growing pains, and they are now trying to solve for problems that this expansive growth has created for them. Right now, in many parts, they're destroying a customer experience, and we have to decide whether or not we want to continue to tacitly support that by allowing them to continue to deliver our products or not. It also depends on the customer. I mean, to some degree, the adage in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, comes to play. If your only alternative as a customer was to get food, even if it may take 45 minutes or an hour, you're prepared to accept that. And then, of course, it becomes a debate as to whether or not that's, whether you should be purist. No, you can't have my product. Or you say, look, you accept it with the caveats that come with that. So I think that they are clearly, as a service partnership, going to get better at doing things. Right now, in most of the world, they're under significant pressure, and that cascades all the way through the kind of the ecosystem. I think who owns the customer is the big debate. Right now, the venture capitalists and the funders are the people that are doing, because it's a money game. I mean, it's a business facility you can choose to use or not. And honestly, that other adage, the golden rule, comes into play. Who's got the gold makes the rules. And they will not take us as being their primary customer whilst they're still trying to satisfy the needs and the desires of the people who are funding them.
Yeah.
And I have no idea where it's going to go. I mean, hopefully it'll end well for everybody. It might not. Who knows?
Hadi?
Well, no, as both said, I completely agree. It's a love and hate relationship. My biggest issue with the aggregator is fine. Yes, they do provide a service. For the smaller restaurants, it's a big service because some of the smaller restaurants cannot have their own fleet. So that helps them. But for the bigger restaurants, it's a bit of a bigger problem. But my issue is that they take away our customer. And the customer relationship, let's say something goes wrong with a delivery or with the order, then they communicate directly with the aggregator. So the relationship of the restaurant isn't there anymore. And that's where we create a problem. We're losing our customer. We always have issues with data from the aggregators. Some of the aggregators didn't even want to share the data. And at the end of the day, this is the data of our customers, which is quite important, because if you want to build and expand and enhance your customer relationship and build that relationship with your customers moving forward, you need that data. You need to understand, you need to give them feedback, you need to see how the product is going to their house, so on and so forth. And having an aggregator, somebody that's not within your staff, creates a problem. And you lose that connection with the customer, and for me, that's, I think, the biggest issue we've had with aggregators. But other than that, we need them. We can't live without them. But I think we need to just manage the relationship better. As Andy said, I think their goal and what they're aspiring to have is different from what we are aspiring or what we want. And I think we need to both go back on the table and talk to each other and say, guys, this is what we need. Can you help us with that?
Duncan?
Yeah, I think obviously a lot's been said, but it's a big challenge because obviously the customer experience is paramount to our business. It's not necessary to theirs. They're a tech business, they're VC funded, and their agenda is very different. And they take over the end of the journey in terms of the guest experience for us, and maybe their priorities are different. But at the end of the day, I think it's critical to all of our businesses that we do work with them, and I think the best way to do that is to have that high level of engagement with them, where we constantly we have dialogue with them on a daily basis, highlighting challenges, because I think the worst thing is if you just discount them but still work with them and you don't have that relationship. So we do everything we can to make sure and I think everyone should be positioned as accurately on their applications as possible. We respect the timings to make sure the food is dispatched as quick as possible, which is obviously something we can control. What happens after it leaves the restaurant is another challenge, but we can control an accurate order going out on time, and that is an integral part of the guest experience. And obviously, we would then hope on the end side that the aggregator would deliver on time. But we still, and I think anyone that has the ability to do so, marketplace where you can is really, really a big advantage, where you can control, as you said, you can control the arrival of the food, how it's presented, the experience at the doorstep. So we do as much as we can to use marketplace wherever possible, and we've managed to negotiate some advantages on that with the aggregators. But it's a long battle, but it's worth doing.
Yes, so that was the views on Zilliverbach, a term coined by our own Damien. So with that, I have a final question for our panel. How do you see customer experience evolving over the next course of, say, 2 to 3 decades? Who would like to take that? Hadi, go ahead.
I have no idea. At the rate the customer experience evolved in the last 2 years, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 6 months. All I know is that technology is key. At the rate we're going, by the time it's in a year or 2 years' time we enter a store, people would know exactly what we eat, how we eat it, our emotions and everything along with it, with the amount of data being recorded with everything that we do. But to be honest, I don't know how to answer that question. It's very tough to see 2 or 3 years down the road, let alone a decade or two. It's fast evolving technology. You have chatbots now doing everything. You don't even know if you're talking to a person or not when you're messaging people or not. So it's very difficult to answer that question.
I totally agree. I mean, let's go back to January, February of 2020. We all knew what was happening in China. We were fine. We knew what was happening. What did we do to prepare? We didn't know what was around the corner 2 months from thence. We didn't know. 2 to 3 decades, what do we know? Nothing. I agree with you. Andy?
I think our history teaches us a lot of what's going to happen in the future. I think that the more seamless and the more convenient and frictionless was the word used earlier, technology becomes, the easier we make it for consumers. Those who do that will gain, benefits. Food development is going to be incredibly important. Plant-based is going to be, if you don't provide that, you're going to have, less and less customers. So that's clearly an expectation. Quality and packaging, all these things we've known over the years are going to, I mean, fish and chips used to come in a wrapped up newspaper which was read yesterday. You don't get that anymore because people realize that, you know, there's a better way to deliver. So I think there's a lot of signals out there. They haven't fundamentally changed. Brands that have got better quality food as and when it's being delivered, whether at table or whether at home, that can make their customer experience from the time that they're, like I said right at the start, the customer's trying to engage with you to the time they leave. If that's constant improvement and wrapped up in a price-value equation where people go, that's worthwhile, those are the things which will make the market continue. And if you're not doing those things, you're going to lose your business.
True.
Yeah, and I think, and COVID's shown that people will still want to have human interactions and have a guest experience in a physical bricks and mortar restaurant. I think what happened after COVID when the lockdowns kind of eased, what was the first thing people did? They were thriving to go to restaurants. They wanted to go back and have a restaurant experience. Yes, they still use delivery a lot, but people want to eat in restaurants. And I think the dark kitchens and virtual brands will all continue to grow. But I think the bricks and mortar restaurants and the guest experience that you receive in that will remain paramount. Yes, there'll be new topics on technology, and there'll be much more interactions with technology. I think you'll be paying the bill differently in the future. It won't come in a piece of paper, things like that. But I think the guest experience will still be human interaction. You'll still be in a bricks and mortar restaurant. I think sustainability will be obviously a continuing subject. I think things like air quality in public facilities like restaurants will become a very big thing. But people want to go to restaurants to eat. And I think that'll still be a very big part of our industry in the future, as well as all the growth around delivery and virtual brands.
You know, I totally agree. Do you want to have a...
I think I'll go home and ask my son to open the crystal ball. I don't know what he'll do in 20 years. I just hope, from my perspective, when I call the restaurant, somebody still answers the line on the other end, because I still like to do that. I don't know. I think like everyone said, what I would like to see as a customer would be cleaner food, better hygienic practices, better quality of production. Undoubtedly, robotics has to be there. I mean, I think more than 50-70% of the food to be cooked in 10 years' time will be done by robots. I think that will happen, but I just hope it's not as processed as the direction is headed out to be. I think a lot more veganism is in. But yeah, I'll go home and ask my son.
No, sure. I'm sure that's another debate whether 70% of everything will be done by robots or we still need chefs. But there's no doubt customer is the king and the paymaster. Customer experience counts. Business that continues to value CX and provides for consistently enhanced experience for their customers will continue to see them come back and thrive as a business. We have 2 minutes, 35 seconds left. Questions for our panelists? Yes.
Hang on, I've got the microphone for you. It's you again. Hello.
Yeah, nice draw.
This has been the only lady who's been asking questions all day.
You're the first one to ask the question in the morning, wasn't she?
Here we go.
So if you were here this morning, you know that I'm probably going to bring it back to music. We are probably the only two people in the room that constantly think about the effect of music on the psychology of people. And as you were talking about the customer experience and how it delighting the customer or your staff in order to get the customer experience maximized is the focus of enhancing that. Why do you think that things like sensory marketing is usually the first things to get rid of when you're facing a crisis like a pandemic? Usually that's the first thing that gets cut from the budget. When you are all very eloquently put it, that customer experience is key to growing your business and keeping up with the expectations of customers as they rise. And do you think that elements such as sensory marketing and music is going to remain as important? And if so, why is it the first thing that gets cut
We
usually?
don't have a lot of time, so we'll go for the answer. Who would like to take this?
Honestly, I can't say I ever cut sensory marketing from the budget because it was never in the budget. But, so I'm not quite sure what it relates to. I know that for restaurant operators during the pandemic, we were not allowed to play music because there were not allowed any customers. So I can't really talk to that. Let me pass to this guy because he'll know.
Obviously, the day we reopened, we started with music again, and obviously we subscribe to a music provider similar to yourselves, and it's a very important part of a touch point that we have with our guests, and we think it's an integral part of the guest experience. So it's something that we don't envisage ever kind of diluting or moving away from. We obviously review our positioning from our music and the atmosphere it creates in line with our brand evolution, and that will continue continuously. And obviously, I don't think anyone wants to go to a restaurant where there's no music. No, even if it's full of robots, I think there'll still be music. Yeah.
I think there's no doubt music provides the much needed impetus in any dining environment. There's no question. It adds the vibe that you really want your customers to experience. So, well, with that, we have to end this session. Thank you, Andy, Duncan, Akhilesh, Hadi. Your contributions are fabulous. Audience, I hope you enjoyed this piece at the fag end of the day of what I thought was an outstanding day. So thank you, Minnie, George. Great job with this fast food and cafe convention. We are highly appreciative of this opportunity, and have a great evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, panel, and well done. We saved the best till last. How about that? Just before we leave you, there are a few thank yous that I'm going to make to our sponsors. As you heard there, that we had a chat with George Mohan from Oddbox this morning, who opened up the session. A lady who's been instrumental in putting this whole event together with her partner George from Oddbox